I want to understand the logical implications of your argument under the Appropriations Clause. You're arguing that even though this legislation says there is a contract, future legislatures are not bound, correct? So if the pension fund were to run dry because each successive legislature decided not to fund it, and public workers who had paid into the system, their deferred compensation, were then waiting for payment, and that last legislature said, we're not appropriating it, is it your position that ultimately the state has no obligation to pay public workers their deferred compensation from their pension under your view of the Appropriations Clause?
Your Honor, I think that issue is neither legally nor practically before this court at the time, and as I said, I believe it is implicated in the Byrd v. Christie case.
But I'm asking you, is that the logical end game of your argument? That ultimately the state has no obligation to pay public workers their pensions?
That is not the end game of the argument. No one in the state is walking away from the state's obligation to pay retirees their benefits.
I'm not asking you what you may feel the government's moral obligation. I'm asking you your constitutional position. Is it your constitutional position, given your view of the Appropriations Clause, that ultimately a legislature, some future legislature, is not bound to pay public workers their pensions?
I think such a result would never happen for political and moral reasons. And
so forget about the political and moral. We're here talking about the law. I'm asking you your view of the Constitution.
And at the 1947 Constitutional Convention, that precise question came up, and the unions advocated for a constitutional amendment that would guarantee pension funding, guarantee the payout of pensions to retirees. And the framers of the 47 Constitution rejected that argument. So there was a proposed constitutional amendment according to what you're saying, and it was rejected.
So are you conceding that the state is not questioning its obligation to pay pension benefits under the defined benefit terms of the statutes to retirees as they become due to each retiree of the public pension funds?
Exactly. The state is not walking away from that obligation in any sense of the word, and the recent actions of the state over the past few years have demonstrated that.
And is that concession based on good policy or your view of the law?
It's definitely based on good policy, but to the extent that the payout of retirees' benefits is considered a normal operating expense or some sort of deferred compensation, I'm not sure whether or not that would itself still be subject to appropriation. What is clear is that pre-funding of the pension system, there's nothing sacrosanct about that. The state currently pays annually on a pay-as-you-go basis $3.1 approximately billion for health care benefits. If the state were to ever reach a situation where there were no funds and where it was impossible to come up with the money on a pay-as-you-go basis, there would be a plethora of options available to the state, including another round of pension obligation bonds. There could be a federal solution to the problem by then.